All right, so for the next section that we have here, we're going to be covering 4.2, which is order and rounding. Let me fix that just a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. There we go. All right, so let's take a look. So if you notice the problem that I have here, it says the decimal 17.758 has three parts. We have what we call the whole number part, which is the number that is to the left of the decimal, and then we have the decimal part, which is the number to the right of the decimal, and then obviously the decimal point is the third part. Okay, so what I want you to think about is when we talk about place values in the number 17, so forget about the 0.758. Remember, this here is in the ones position, and that there is in the tens position. Now, since we do have some numbers to the right of the decimal place, I want to explain what these positions are here. This one is what we call the tenths. This one is what we call the hundredths. And the 8 is what we would call the thousandths. And if we had more numbers, we would sort of continue with that idea. All right, so let's take a look at what we're going to be doing here. It says we're going to be rounding decimals to place value to the right of the decimal point. So the directions here say locate the digit to the right of the given place value. If the digit is 5 or greater, add 1 to the digit in the given place value and delete all the digits to the right. If the digit is less than 5, delete all digits to the right of the given place value. Okay, so I'm going to explain what that means in hopefully much simpler terms. All right, so I'm going to get my red pen here, and it says we're going to round this number to the nearest tenth. So if you recall, the tenth is the first number to the right of the decimal point, okay? So that's the number I'm going to round. So I already know that I'm going to leave my 736 point alone. Now, the number that I want to round is my number 2. So I'm going to look at the number directly to the right of it. The number directly to the right of the 2 is a 3. Since that number is not a 5 or more, I'm going to leave my 2 alone, and I'm not going to write anything else after that. Okay? Now, let's take a look at the next problem. It says we're going to round 736.2359 to the nearest hundredth. So the hundredths position is the second number to the right after the decimal point. In this case, it's the number 3. That's the number that I want to round. So in order for me to round it, I need to look at the number to the right of the 3. Well, the number to the right of the 3 is a 5. Since it's a 5, I'm going to leave my 736.2 alone, but that 3 is now going to become a 4, and I'm not going to write any other numbers after that. So when I'm rounding, I'm looking at the digit that I want to round. I have to look at the number directly to the right of it. If that number directly to the right is 4 or less, then I just write my number, nothing else after it. If the number to the right of my number that I'm trying to round is going to be a 5 or more, then I'm going to bump up that number, and I'm going to not write anything else after to the right of that. Okay, so let's take a look at the next one that I have here. It says the price of a gallon of premium gasoline in Cross City is currently $3.17779. Okay, round this to the nearest cent. So remember, the cent would be, let's round to the nearest penny. So that first 7 right there. So I'm going to leave my 3.1 alone. Now if you look at the number to the right of that first 7, I have another 7. So since that second 7 is 5 or more, then the first 7 is going to bump up to an 8. So $3.18. All right, same thing with the next one. We're going to round to the nearest cent. If you notice here, the 9 is in the cents position because that's like the pennies. I'm going to look at the number to the right of my 9. That number is an 8. Since that number 8 is 5 or more, then I'm going to have to bump up my 9. But if I bump up my 9, now I'm at 10 cents. Okay, and so for the next problem that I have here, it says a high school teacher's taxable income is $41,567.72. The tax tables in the teacher's state use amounts to the nearest dollar. Round the teacher's income to the nearest dollar. So again, an easier way to explain this, since we're going to round to the nearest dollar, that's the last 7 right before my decimal point. So the question that essentially it's asking me is $41,567.72, is that number closer to $41,567, or is it closer to $41,568? Well, we have 72 cents. That's almost $1. So we're actually closer to 41,568. All right, so for the next problems that I have here in 4.2, they're asking me to write each fraction as a decimal. So this is a real simple problem that all I'm going to do is I'm going to use my calculator. So I'm going to take my calculator and I'm going to take 1, I'm going to divide it by 5, and I'm coming up with 0.2. I'll do the same thing for this next one. So I'm going to take 17 divided by 25, 0.68. When you're doing these problems here in your calculator, you always want to take the top number divided by the number on the bottom. It's always going to be that process, okay? So my next one, 3 divided by 8, I'm coming up with 0.375. 7 divided by 9. If you notice on your calculator, did you probably come up with something like 0.77? There's a whole lot of 7s, and at the end it's an 8. That 7 is repeating. So the way we indicate that a number repeats is we put a little bar only over the 7. Okay? So my next one here is 31 divided by 40. That's giving me 0.775. And the next one I have here is 9 divided by 11. And again, if you notice, my calculator is saying 0.818181.8, and then there's a 2, because again, it's rounding it for me. So the number that keeps on repeating is both the 8 and the 1. So if you notice, I'm putting my bar on both the 8 and the 1. All right, for my next problems here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to convert these to a decimal, and I'm going to round. So I'm going to take 1 divided by 3. On my calculator, I'm getting 0 point and a whole lot of 3s. I know I would normally put the bar, but what I want to do here is I want to write a few 3s out. The reason I want to write out some of these numbers is because I'm going to be rounding here. So remember, the hundredths position is the second number to the right of that decimal point. So I'm going to leave my first 3 alone. The question here is, should I change that 3 to a 4, or should I leave it alone? Well, if you look at the number to the right, it's not 5 or more, so I'm going to leave that second 3 is also a 3. All right, let's try the same thing for the next one. 7 divided by 16. And again, I'm rounding to the nearest hundredth, so the number that I'm coming up with is 0.4375. That's in my hundredths position. So I need to look at the number to the right of it. It's a 7. It's more than 5, or it's 5 or more. So I'm going to bump up that 3 to a 4. All right, we'll do the same thing for the next problems. 7 divided by 11. And I'm coming up with 0.63, and it keeps on repeating. But if you notice now, I'm going to round to the nearest tenth. This is my tenths position. The first number to the right is my tenths position. Since the number to the right of it is less than 5, I'm going to leave my 6 alone, and I'm done. I'm going to give you a moment to try this one here. You might want to hit pause so that you can try it on your own, and then I will tell you the answer. Okay, so I'm guessing you came up with 0.818181. Again, if we're rounding to the nearest tenth, that's my tenths position. The number to the right of that 8 is a 1, so I'm going to leave my answer as 0.8.